the drill down assignment, the cut-in method. Step 1 is to gather all supplies and ingredients. In the cut-in method, the conventional method of making pastries, you'll need a pastry blender, or 2 table knives, or your hands. I'm going to start by cutting the butter roughly into chunks so that when we add it to the flour, it's easier to use with our pastry blender. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add this to the freezer to chill it off. Notice in my freezer I also have my water chilling. Keep everything cold so the fat doesn't melt before baking. Now, I'm using shortening because it resists melting and it disperses easily into dry ingredients. And I'm using my unsalted butter for extra flavor. Now accurately measure your dry ingredients. Mix well to incorporate your flour, salt, and sugar. Next, roughly cut in your cold shortening and add your chilled butter. Now use your pastry blender to cut in the fat. You use this tool so that it can break the fat into smaller pieces and distribute it in the flour so it coats and lubricates the granules. By cutting in the fat, you will greatly reduce the ability of the gluten proteins in the flour to create gluten when mixed later with the liquid. If you don't own a pastry blender, you can use 2 table knives in a crossed position to cut in your butter. Some experienced cooks use their fingertips for blending. Caution, novice bakers overmix when using this method and tend to allow the warmth of their hands to soften the fat too much. If the butter melts before baking, it blends with the dough and won't form flaky layers. In all of these cut-in options, ensure the mixture is crumbly, leaving some finer particles of fat and some pea-sized pieces. The second step is binding the dough with water. The trick is to add enough water to make the dough cohere, but not so much to form gluten, which will make the pastry hard, chewy, and bread-like. When you can gather the dough up into a tidy ball, stop handling it. Remember, you want to ensure the butter remains cold because if it melts before baking, it won't form the flaky layers. Another way to do the cut-in method, and a lot faster way, is to use the food processor. So you add all of your dry ingredients, you add your frozen butter, and your shortening. Then process for a couple of seconds at a time, stopping between each pulse. Once it processes into the fine grains and the pea-sized pieces, I add my liquid and I pulse further. Grab with my hands, see if it squeezes into a dough, and it's perfect. If it was crumbly, I would add a little bit more ice water. So fast. The key to flaky dough is suspending fat deposits of butter and shortening rather than fully incorporating them into the dough. The colder the fat remains, the easier it is to turn out the ultimate pie. Or in this case, an apple turnover. Here I've rolled my dough into a circle, cut in half, folded to create a pocket, filled with apples, and sealed the edges. Notice the product is layered throughout with tiny air pockets. Perfect. That's the cut-in method.